Okay, you can start when you want.
Yep. I'm going to start in a new directory for us. So don't mess up what we got. And so when you're using Helm, the Helm command is your two parts to it: the Helm client and pillar, which is a server. You don't have to use both. But the reason we recommend using the Helm client
Llévatelo, venga, Felipe, corre.
until Helm 3 is out, because it makes life easier for the user. So first thing we have is we have the repo. So we'll search for a repo, and we do that by doing a list. And so you can see I have 3 repos here myself. I have our stable one, which is basically the standard Helm charts that everyone uses. And then I have my local charts, and then CloudBees is actually our public charts. And then what we can do is we can then say Helm repo update. And then what this will do is this will go out and pull down and update our local cache or stuff. Doing this because we just did a release that we're working through for the September release. So now what we can do is we can do Helm, and then you can search. And for us, it's CloudBees core is our package name. So it's our Helm chart name. Now what I'm going to do is, so that I don't see any local ones that I create, I'm going to focus on the CloudBees repo. And so you just do it like think of it like a directory. This tells you that that's your repo that you're going to look at, and this is telling you the chart you're going to look for. So by default, it brings up the latest one, and then you 2 different versions. The chart version, and this allows us to increment the chart. We'll probably come out with, say, a 3.51 that might fix some bugs we have in it before we release the next version of CloudBees core. And then that's the CloudBees core version here. Now, if you need to, we keep more than one version in our repository. You do the -l, this will list everything that's in the repository. Okay. And so you can see we have many different versions out here. So this was last month's release. This is this month's, and these ones beforehand. The numbering convention that you're seeing here was an attempt to try to use the CloudBees core number in the chart version, but it just caused problems. So if you look at this one, you see that it's 2176, 23. What we were doing is we were making the second number times it by 100 and then saying it was 200, and then 3 would be the added on, because we never figured we'd have more than 99 patches. It just caused problems for customers that were previewing it. We went to the 3 because when you do a Helm update or upgrade, it won't do it if it sees a newer version there. So we obviously had to bump it up above 2 for that to be able to be upgraded easily. So far, so good?
Yep, great.
Okay, so there's a couple ways you can do Helm. We'll search for it. Let's do Helm install. And the way I like to do it is with help files, what we call, pause that real quick. Picked the wrong one. Get them checked out. No, not on DOS. So we have a Git repository out there called examples. You'll notice we talk about that in our online help. And one of these is give everyone an example of what different types of systems are set up. Make it really easy for you to do this.
Okay.
So I'm going to use VS Code, and we'll go and take a look at the examples. So for just a generic one, in a Helm chart, what you do is you have basically the engine ingress. And what we're doing here, one of the things we got back is feedback from you guys and from pretty much everyone that's worked with Cloudbase Core for the last year or so, is that the ingress is the biggest problem customers have problems with. Either installing engine ingress, configuring it. So if they don't have an ingress set up, they can type in true here, and we'll go ahead and set up an ingress form. And down here, what we do is this is replacing the host name. So whereas when you would go through the old system and have to do all those set commands, you don't have to do that one. Just type in your host name here. To do TLS, as long as you're going to do the TLS as terminated in the Nginx ingress, which is typically what most people will do, you're going to just do enable here. So you just say, hey, true here. And then all you need to do then is have your certificate stored in a secret. So it'd be a Kubernetes certificate, Kubernetes secret. And there's a certificate type secret you can do. Does that make sense so far?
Sure.
Okay. So what we'll do is let's go ahead and just do a generic install. Just turn that off. And we'll go ahead and do true to this. And then what I'm doing for myself, so that I have a domain, I actually have my own domain that I use. Up here. And just because I'm lazy, I do it all through AWS on my domain. But the idea being is that as a customer, you would have your own domain. So for example, CloudBees, we have our own. Okay, cool. My finger. Look. Try it again. Oh, that's why. And I'm sure you've already done all this stuff before, but this is basically, I'm just going in here. I have a domain. And then what I'm going to do is, I'm using this GKE example. I just couldn't remember it. We'll come back to this in a minute once we get it up and running. So what I'm going to do, we'll copy that. Minimize that guy. Find my VS Code environment. And then all I'm going to do is change this for the moment.
Okay.
And then the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually say true to install the ingress. And I'm going to make sure I'm right. I think I've cleaned all this up beforehand. XTO, pods. We'll get rid of that. XTO, delete. Yes. SVC. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to delete everything that's in this namespace. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all the stuff. But first thing I want to see is what I've got out there. Get the services. I'm going to get the ingresses. And what else am I forgetting? Oh, the PVCs. So we can see we've got here, we do still have a service. The none of our tooling at the moment does anything with the masters. So if you're cleaning up for an environment or if you're looking for something to support an environment, you're going to need to delete those manually because they're created through CJOC. The idea is that we want to manage those through the operating center at the moment. So that's why we don't have the Helm chart or anything to do that. the pushback we're getting, and I'm sure you've experienced this with larger customers, anyone has a lot of masters, it's very cumbersome. So we're looking at different options that might fix that in the future.
Okay.
I don't think we've come up with anything that we're thrilled about. I think the goal would be is eventually maybe using something with config as code, possibly. One thing to remember when you're doing these, you can't have spaces in between there, which is annoying. No name, that's right. So obviously the all flag would delete anything I don't have to type in the name. I'm lazy.
Okay.
One thing you want to be careful about, but it's also helpful for us when we're actually doing the work. You'll notice, as I said, we don't delete even the CJOC PVC. The reason because we're concerned that the customer actually might try to do a delete and not realize that and not have backup and they lose data. So that means if you're removing an instance and trying to get a customer up and running, you have to remember to go delete this, or otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to basically load up the old system again. Now, we take advantage of that for the migration. So what we'll do is, if say you haven't used Helm before, you could do a delete the stateful set and then turn around and run Helm. And then what will happen is it'll automatically use this PVC set. So it'll be just like you're always installed.
Okay.
But then you have Helm to work with.
Okay, right.
Sometimes, and I don't know why, that will hang up there. So what we'll do is we'll just double check, make sure everything's gone. Still turning, so we'll wait for a second. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to actually have Helm to a list. And what we're doing there with Helm list, I want to see what is available on this server. Just to make sure that I didn't have something still running.
Okay.
Now, I'm assuming you guys are familiar with kubectx and kubeNS. What this is, this one is kubecontext. It's basically a little helper. They're both the same tools. They let you select which context you're in, so you can quickly just jump around. That's really helpful when you've got a bunch of different contexts, but the better one I like is the cube namespace. Same thing. I can pick different namespaces here.
Great.
So for example, for the new horror orientation, I have a namespace there. I can then do Helm class. Nothing there. It's a lot easier than the horrible commands that you're supposed to use. Let's go ahead and get this. See if we're still. Okay. I think I'm not in the same namespace. Should I check what namespace I was in? A bunch of junk out here. I knew I had a bunch of junk out here. Feel free to delete this section out or I'm moving through my stuff. It's a simple way to do that. There, we're safe. Now we know we have nothing in there. Oh. It's good to actually go into the one you just created. Okay. There we go. Great. So now what we can do is we have our Helm chart out there. Just to quick look at that again. We're going to have it do the ingress for us. We're on GKA, so we'll come up here and we set this platform, just a standard. You don't have to set this because it's already defaulting to standard, but just for good sake, we'll do that. Yeah. So walking down the Helm install, just basically Helm install. This is the name of your release. This is telling us what repository we want to. And if we wanted to, we could actually pick a different version. So we'll actually install the most recent version out there. And then with -F, we're going to use our file that we just created.
Okay.
Just hit enter. Now, this is the status screen which you'll get. So we're now being told this is what's been deployed. This is our role bindings and everything set up. So all of our resources that we normally would do through Kubernetes is there. And then you'll notice under the services, we now have our load balancer. And we're waiting for our external IP address.
Okay.
Okay. And so we can then, at any time, if we want to, use the Helm status and with the release name, we can bring that up. And this is a great way for troubleshooting stuff because what you've just done is pulled everything up. So for example, let's go ahead and delete the stateful set just for the heck of it. CTL, delete, STS, all. No, I'm going to do that right. Everyone else has the 3-letter abbreviation with delete. All right, so we've deleted the stateful set, but we still have Helm running. So I can do Helm status. If you remember to put the name in. And then what we're going to see is it's actually telling us, hey, you should have a stateful set here, and it's missing. I don't have it. So it's a really quick way to find out if there's a problem with the Helm install. And then, if you remember, we can do Helm list. This is telling us this is what our reversion is. And obviously, if you want to know the command, just do help. I'm going to see if a rollback will actually fix this for us. So when we were doing this list up here, just to give you a quick thing. Again, this is our revision. This is the revision. I'm sorry. This is our This is our release. This is our revision, and then this is the status. So it's been deployed. Just like Kubernetes has a rollback command, we don't really use it. Helm does too. So what I can do is I can roll back CloudBees Core 1. So I'm using the CloudBees Core release, and I'm telling which version I want to go back to. Then I can do Helm status. really works if I do that type thing. Okay. And we can go through here. Let's find our stateful set. Got our ingress, our role bindings, our service, our pod. So there's no more any missing, so everything looks like it's working. So let's see if we actually have our admin password out there for us. Okay. So what that means is basically we're waiting on the stateful set to come up. So let's take a look and see where it's at. Okay, there's our services. You can see our stateful set is being brought back up, CJOC. All this is just basically an alias for queue control get stateful. Yes. And then what we'll go ahead and do is let's describe it. And what we're seeing here is we can actually see this. The biggest thing with the describes that you get is looking at the events for that particular resource. But we can see it starting back. So what that did for you from a troubleshooting point of view, you can use the status to see if something's wrong. If you've got a successful deployed state, you can sometimes revert back to that state to get a customer up and running fairly quickly. So that's kind of helpful.
Okay.
So what we should be able to do, since we've got this running, let's see if we can actually go out to that browser site and see if anything shows up. So GKE example. And we would expect to be in the Jenkins setup. While we wait for that, minimize. Oh, didn't want to do that. Right. Let's go see why we don't get an yet. What do you think would be the problem right now?
When you have tried to get the CJOG secrets, is returning that the file is not there, so maybe the PVC has not been deployed correctly for the CJOG.
Now we can check that real quick and say Helm status and see if we have a PVC. Yes, I type in. Oh. Alignment, cluster roles, stateful sets there. Dash service, pod, role, Config map. Not listing my PVC. No, it's there. So we see it's created. The one thing we have to do, we haven't done yet, is we have a service that's going to change for what environment we're on. We've got to map the DNS to the service. So I've got to take this external IP on the load balancer and put this into AWS. In an EKS, you would have the CNAME for the elastic load balancer.
Okay.
So once we do this, this URL will then work for us. And I didn't forget to do that. I was planning to teach, that's why I did that. Of course.
Great troubleshooting.
That's the secret. Oh, I don't want to go into my personal Amazon accounts. So we're going to Route 53. Type profile name. That's it. Not my domain. Find our GK examples. And in this case, we're just switching it for the IP address, and then this is just a standard A record.
Okay.
So that. And then I have my TTL, the time to live, set to, I think, 5 minutes at the most. Usually fairly quick.
Okay.
Hold this. While we're waiting for that, I go back to finding my cheat sheet on creating a Let's Encrypt password. I mean, secret. Oh, Panda Docs. Core. Finding stuff in here is a pain. We have to grab this stuff before here. Okay. All right. Let's open this one. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a tool called Turbot, probably familiar with, and that way we can create a wildcard certificate.
Okay.
I'm not sure I got the right one there. I think this is what I want instead. This guy. All right. Time. Back to that. So at this point, we should be able to see. Yay! Hangs it up. So what we saw is that's how you can quickly set it up. Now if we come back to our command line, we had our standard stuff that you've always done before. And so we're now setting up CJOC. We can do a trial license. submit that. Now, a couple things we can do now is we have Helm, so we can still list it. And you'll see that we now have a revision 2. So it means it's been successfully deployed. So we can always do what they call the history on a release. And so you can see that shows that version 2 is our rollback. Okay. And at any point, we can jump back between these. There's also some Helm plugins, and that's what I'm writing the documentation for right now. So we'll go ahead and do plugins. List. So the one that is really helpful from a developer point of view, for you guys, is this diff one. So Helm diff. We'll just do the help on it. So you can do a couple different types of diffs. You can do a diff between release, diffs between revisions. You can do a diff to say, hey, what's going to happen if I do an upgrade? And so for this case, what we'll do is we'll do the diff between revisions. So I can do Helm diff revision, and then 1, 2. And then what it's telling us is there's no real difference between the two, and that's what we'd expect. Now, if we were to have done an update, we would have seen a diff version of the actual YAML files. So it's a quick way of saying, hey, what changed between these two different versions? And you can do that real quick.
Okay.
So if we're over here to get our plugins installed, get that going, and over to our Alrighty. Let's grab this whole swip. No. Come back. Don't leave me. That. Oh. Seriously. This is going to be a pain. Talk to the bird. Well. Alright. Okay, so great TLS. So this is us creating the TLS secret. Go ahead and create our admin user. Admin. Bees. So the main reason I was mentioning this one is just to kind of show you how using help files, or what I'm calling the custom value files, makes setting up with Helm so much easier. You don't have to put it on the command line. You have that file that you can check into source control and go back to the next release. So when I'm doing my upgrade, I just use that same file and boom, I'm up and running.
That's right.
So now what I want to do is get back to the command line. I've copied this right. Paste. Do that. Alrighty. Alright. So where are we at here? gonna copy this. Here. Sorry, I forgot to set this up. Still over? Come put you to sleep, have we? Still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hopefully this is the right command now. That's better. I don't know why the wildcard's not working. Alright, well, we're going to stop this because I don't want to waste more time. And what I can do is I'll work on this and get you an instruction on how you can do this yourself. But from a programming point of view, all we would do next, and we actually covered this in the documents, but once you got your TLS, you got your domain name set up. Find. I don't know. So what we're going to do next is then we create the actual certificate in the domain, is what we're supposed to do. Once we have that record, we can then create the Kubernetes secret,
Okay.
and then that stores it in. And that secret name is then what you need to change in your in the example file. And then once you have that done, then you're in TLS. You just deploy it.
Okay.
It's pretty simple at that point. So, well, we got a few minutes. Is there any questions you want to talk about, or anything else you want to talk about?